Well, greetings. This is Dean Tenney coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. I know how many viewers and subscribers to the channel love practice questions. And so time to beef up the playlist with some practice questions for you. I think I got 33 when I didn't care for, so it says 33, but it's really 32 practice questions. I appreciate your referrals to the SIE playlist. I apologize that we haven't been beefing up the 9, 10, 24 playlists as much as I'd like, but most of the channel is for SIEs and 7s and 66s and 63s and 6s and 65. So we're getting there, though. Consider this another installment. I'll get back to the explications at some point, and I appreciate you guys are important to me, and I appreciate the referrals of your junior folks to those other parts of their testing journey that the channel can help them with as a free supplement to their paid study materials. All right, that being said, let's get started. Test prep question number 1. All the following may be issued to verify a customer's identity except. So in the firms, you know the drill, I think, on how these questions work. Hit the play button or pause button, answer the question, see how you did. And then I like to talk about the question, explicate that question. So, attempt it yourself, hit pause, and then hit play, and I will return. Okay, welcome back. All the following may be used to verify a customer's identity except. Under the Patriot Act, we need to be able to verify you are who you claim to be. And so we have to have in our written supervisory procedures of the broker-dealer our customer identification program, our CIP program. And that requires at a minimum a photo ID. And then we have to have procedures for closing the account if we're unable to verify it. So this comes down to which one of these is acceptable identification that you are who you claim to be. Passport certainly has a picture. Driver's license has a picture. Military ID has a picture. A birth certificate does not. A birth certificate does not. So the answer is D. Test question number 2. All the following may be found on a customer confirmation except. So, one of the big things in terms of test is disclosure of capacity. We're all called broker dealers, but in any one transaction, we're either going to be acting in our broker agency capacity or our dealer principal capacity. We get paid for transactions, and we either get paid commissions or markup or markdowns. Never both. I can't be a broker agent in the same trade that I'm a dealer principal. How can I engage in negotiations with myself about a markup or a markdown? So A is kind of nonsensical. A commission when I acted as a dealer, I got to pick one or the other. I can either be an agent, a broker agent, or dealer principal. So that seems that's going to be a problem. Payment for order flow needs to be disclosed. If I'm an order entry firm and I'm using a preference market maker, I'm Robinhood and Citadel is the preference market maker, I have to disclose that. The preference market maker has to agree to always honor at least the inside market or inside quote, the highest bid and lowest ask, regardless of what that preference market maker is displaying elsewhere. A control relationship. As an example, there's a control relationship between Bank of America, the issuer, and Merrill Lynch. And if you buy Bank of America stock through Merrill Lynch on the confirm, it will tell you that there's a control relationship. If I am a Merrill broker and I call you and say, hey, have you been following what's going on with our parent company? Lots of exciting things. I think you should buy 1,000 shares. You said, well, Dean, why are you bothering me? You have discretionary authority. And the whole point is I don't want to be bothered. I said, well, I'm not allowed to use my discretionary authority when there's a control relationship. So, I'm going to have to get permission for that. Now, if you decide to go ahead, that would be a solicited, my idea, discretion, not exercise. I didn't use my discretionary authority to get that for you. In a disclosure of a crossing the stock between two customers and charging the commission to either side. So, for example, if the stock is 15.16 and I'm not a market maker in the security, why, if we can cross it, send it to the market maker. So, your seller, it looks like as a customer, you're going to receive 15. And as a buyer, it looks like you're going to pay 16. So I said, well, why don't I go to a customer cross? I take it out of a customer A, the guy who's selling it out of their account, 1550, and put it into the customer who's buying into their account at 1550. Both parties in that example, doesn't have to be this way, but they both ended up getting a price improvement. The only loser was the market maker who did not receive the order. But in dual agency, I have to disclose to the customers, because again, it is a conflict to be representing both the buyer who wants to pay the least amount possible and the seller who wants to get the most amount possible in the same trade. So yes, I would disclose that. So the answer to 2 is A. 3, customer statements are sent quarterly. That's the very testable if there's no activity in the account. So the exception to that, so the answer is A. The exception to that would be if there's a penny stock in the account. Very testable. A penny stock is a non-NASDAQ OTC stock under 5. Please note, a New York or NASDAQ stock under 5 is not a penny stock. And if there's a penny stock in your account, very testable, you're going to get a monthly statement. But otherwise, it's going to be quarterly. Susan, one of your brokers in your firm has been recalled into active military service overseas. By the way, it doesn't matter if it's overseas, it's active military service. She expresses concern about her registration status while she's away. She should be advised that, hey, no worries, Susan, while you're out, defending the Republic against the enemies of the Constitution, foreign and domestic, we're going to put your registration in inactive status. And so you'll be able to receive commissions that you originally put on the books. The answer is A. Now, when Susan comes back, she has 90 days to tell us what she'd like to do. Maybe she had an epiphany and doesn't want to come back into the business, whatever the case may be. The answer is A. Which of the following must be submitted to start the transfer of assets from one broker-dealer, old broker-dealer, to another, new broker-dealer through ACATS? That is the transfer initiation form, and the receiving broker, the old broker, has 1 day to verify and 3 days to transfer. B. Which of the following statements about prime brokerage is true? If I am a hedge fund, for example, I say, listen, nobody has a monopoly on ideas. So if you present to me BTIG, for example, a good idea, and it's your idea, I will do that through your broker dealer, and you can either get your commission, your markup, or markdown. So you'll get paid for the transaction. So I'm not monogamous with who I trade with. What I am monogamous about is who provides me with custody and financing. I don't want to get 15 different statements. So I say to BTIG, my prime broker is Goldman Sachs. They provide me custody and financing, so settle up with Goldman Sachs. So executing brokers must register as prime brokers. No, if I just want to be an executing broker, I don't need to be a prime broker. I choose what lines of business I want to be in, and various lines of business require different levels of net capital. So A is not true. Prime brokerage trade exclusively in fixed income securities. No, that's not true. Large buy-side hedge funds look to prime brokers for financing and centralized clearing. Yeah, the idea is I don't want to get a bunch of different sets of statements, right? So that's C. Prime brokers do not earn fees. Oh my goodness, that's one of the biggest things about being a prime broker is the float. So D is certainly not true. All the following forms are mandatory for a margin account. So margin accounts require additional documentation. All accounts going to need a new account form, certainly. A credit agreement is mandatory. That's where you say you understand you're borrowing money and you're paying interest based on broker call, mandatory. A hypothecation agreement that tells you understand you're pledging your securities is collateral for the loan. And if you don't fulfill your responsibility, we're going to sell you out. The securities are going to be in street name, the name of the broker dealer. Now, in a cash account, you have a choice about whether your securities are going to be in street name or not, the name of the broker dealer. We highly recommend you put your securities in the street name because operationally, things will just be a heck of a lot easier in terms of, transferring buys and sells and back office stuff. So we highly recommend it. But in margin account, you have no choice. You must have that hypothecation agreement. Now, that means that a lot of the proxy materials are being sent to the broker dealer because it looks like the broker dealer is the one who owns the securities, and that's not true. That's not true. So, we can't charge customers to forward proxy materials. Be careful. We can charge the issuer. So, securities in street name mean the issuer is going to be seeing proxy materials with the broker dealer. What isn't mandatory, and the answer to this question is A. I say, listen, we have other customers wish to establish short positions. Would it be okay to lend them your securities? And you say, well, Dean, I think it's in my best interest to lend securities that I'm long to help people establish short positions. I say it's not. And so that one is optional. The loan consent form is optional. Now, if our customer wants to sell short, we're going to have a locate requirement. We're going to have to go find the security. And typically, this is what we do. We call stock loan and see if we have any customers who have signed the loan consent form for this particular security. And then we can, lend it to our customer, go short. If we can't get it internally from our stock loan, we can go get it from another broker dealer, perhaps. A special memorandum account. So, when you buy stock in a margin account and it goes your way, just like a house, I think a house is the best analogy, right? Market value of the house, mortgage on the house equals equity. Equity represents what you'd have if you close the account. Nobody's suggesting you do that. But in that situation, you have excess equity. The same in a margin account at a broker dealer. When the stock goes your way, you generate excess equity. Now, if I told you you had to use your excess equity today, you might use it in a way that's not in your best interest. So what we do is lock in that excess equity, that high water mark, by making a special memorandum to your account. I think it was like a holding tank, if you will. And you can have that SMA as cash at 1-to-1. So I'll just make up a number. If you have SMA of $10,000, I'm willing to let you have the $10,000. SMA is cash. That's 1-to-1, not 2-to-1. So borrowing power is 1-to-1. You can borrow $1 in cash for every dollar you have in SMA. So A is not correct. Purchasing power, 2 times your SMA, is indeed your buying power. So my example, if you had $10,000 in SMA, you have $20,000 in purchasing power. So the answer is B. B. Be careful. The things you need to know about margin accounts, I would definitely know debit by 0.75. That's market value at maintenance long. I have several little carve out lectures on this stuff. And credit by 1.3 is market value at maintenance in a short account. I would certainly know those. And then I would know the $2,000 trick, about a new account. Here's that $2,000 trick. So initial purchase, key phraseology, initial purchase in a long margin account is 100 shares of ABC at 36. So between $2,000 and $4,000, you're going to need to come up with $2,000. Now, the other version of this trick is that you want to buy something less than $2,000. And if you want to buy less than $2,000, if this said, for example, 100 shares at 18, it doesn't. But if it did, that would be $1,800. If this was an established account, established margin account would be 1,800. So be careful. There's a floor, and there's this, floor at $2,000 or less. You just pay $2,000 to $4,000. You pay $2,000. Stupid, but testable. It's on every exam. Which of the following statements is true? Institutional communications always require prior principal approval. On the exam, we don't really care so much about institutional communications in institutional customers. What we care about on the test is retail communications and retail customers. And so institutional communications do not require prior principal approval if they're trained in the firm procedures. That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So I would definitely know the definition of retail communications. It's more than 25 customers, persons, prospects, more than 25 persons in a 30-day period. That's retail communication. 25 or less is considered correspondence. I would definitely make sure that I know that definition. A registered representative has a customer who works as an accountant for a firm whose stock is publicly traded. The customer places a larger than customary order to buy the company's stock. Which of the following is true? That sounds like it's a red flag for insider trading. So A. By the way, in the firm's written supervisory procedures, there's got to be a section on insider trading. Research information barriers, all that kind of stuff. We make every new hire read it and sign acknowledging that they've read it and that they understood it. An investor looking to artificially inflate the price of a stock, inflate. That means pump, right? Inflate. The price of a stock by making false or misleading positive statements might be engaged in which of the following fraudulent activities. Now, these insider trading is certainly fraudulent. That's trading on material, non-public information, but that's not what this is about. Front running is definitely something you shouldn't do. That's trading ahead of customers. That's bad. It's not this, though. Backing away is failing to honor a firm quote, and that's a problem. But it's not this. It's a pump and dump, a pump and dump. You know, Jordan Belfort, if you saw Wolf of Wall Street, Stratton Oakmont, you know, that's what he was engaged in, was a pump and dump. And, you know, violations of 33, he ended up going to jail. You have to work pretty hard to go to jail. But making a fraudulent distribution of securities to the public is certainly one of those things. So answer here is D. A quote is entered at 2250. So I always suggest that when you get one of these questions, you make up your own exhibit. So I'm just going to make up my own exhibit. And they tell me right now that the inside market or inside quote is 2250, 23. And I would know that what that is the highest bid and the lowest ask. So what I'm suggesting you do is make up your own exhibit to answer this question. Change the colors here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is a test taker is what I suggest you do now once you get your kind of scratch paper exhibit going, is then enter in the quote, right? So it says the inside, ooh, no, I got this backwards. Hold on, let me get this. It's in reverse order, right? The quote is entered at 2250, so I got to redo my exhibit here. The inside quote is 2315, 2325. So remember what the inside quote or inside market is the highest bid and the lowest ask. All right, so now I'm back in business. By the way, that's the other reason I believe I'm having a process. As you notice there, I kind of caught myself based on having a process. Whereas if I'm just trying to do this in my head, it's less likely that I recognize I've made some kind of a mistake. All right, so back in business here. So now we enter in a quote, and that's why I like doing the exhibit, because it makes it a little more transparent about what's going on here. So the quote 2250, 23, and it looks like we now have a bid that is higher than the bid. Highest bid is 2315, and the ask is now 23. So that is a crossed market, and that is a crossed market. And so the answer is A. A lock market would be when the bid and the ask are the same. It's always upon the market maker entering the quote is the one responsible for making sure they don't lock or cross the market. I wouldn't get too into the weeds. On 24, this is going to be way more testable than it is on a 10, for example. But, you know, try and get a handle on that bid and the ask and whose perspective it is. You know, if you're coming from a packaged product background, you know, mutual funds, and now you're taking a 9, 10, or 24, that can be kind of a challenge. So the answer is A. Which of the following is true regarding NASDAQ? NASDAQ is the National Association of Securities Dealers automated quotation system. You should definitely know it's not an auction market. They're not matching buyers and sellers on NASDAQ. There are market makers who are trading from inventory. They're trading against customers. So almost always when you have a trade problem, trade practice complaint or something, it's not New York, because New York is an auction order-driven market where they're matching buyers and sellers. All reports are made on the A-tape. Reports of trades may be made. There we go. Reports of trades may be made through FINRA, NASDAQ, or the trade reporting facility. And for most trades, the party that reports is the sell side, and they do so within 10 seconds. A market maker in ABCD is holding a customer limit order to buy 300 shares at 21.35. Very important to understand that here we tell you it's a customer buy limit, but you know, the test doesn't have to do that. They could just say a customer wants to buy 321.35, and you should know that if a customer expresses a price, that's his price or better, his or her price or better. Now, in the old days, prior to Manning. We call these limit order protection rules the Manning rules. What I used to do is just sit on that and pretend that I didn't have that order. And I'd wait till I bought it for me at a lower price and then fill the limit. You know, Chairman Levitt, who was chairman of the SEC at the time, wrote his memoir called Taking on the Street. And a lot of the rules you're being tested on come from his tenure. And he says, hey, market makers make tens of billions of dollars less than they did when prior to the rule changes that I implemented, like limit order protection rules, for example. Now, be careful. My obligation, my minimum obligation. So we're not asking you best practice. So particularly on trading questions, you can get them wrong by doing, answering best practice instead of minimum obligation. And my minimum obligation under limit order protection is whatever I do for me to do the same for the customer. So if I bought 200 shares as a principal into inventory at 21.34, then I'm going to have to do the same for the customer. So whatever I do for me, I have to do for the customer. So the answer is A. By the way, I don't have to do more, right? So it's 300 and I bought 200. So 200 for me, 200 for Mr. Manning. Which product must be submitted to a FINRA advertising department before its first use? Now, listen, I disagree with STC. STC says DBPs need to be submitted, and that's just not true. It's not in the FIN rules, but, I'm sure if you look on my thing, if you find something contradictory, verbal errata or brain fart, let me know. Again, I don't know, 150 hours of content on the channel. So we're all do it, but there's no doubt that options, that's true. If any derivatives advertising requires it be filed or submitted to FINRA before its first use, regardless of whether you're an established firm or not. So any derivatives advertising, that would not only be options, by the way, that'd be tranches, CMOs, collateralized mortgage obligations. A security may be rejected at delivery for each of the following reasons, except we have what's called the Uniform Practice Code, which standardizes secondary trading practices within the securities industry. And you can imagine what a mess the industry would be if everybody's conducting business differently. This is about the back office, the support unit, backstage. It has nothing to do with the customer. So a customer gives me a bond with a mutilated coupon, I say, thank you very much. But, I know that on the Uniform Practice Code, as the selling broker dealer, I can get rejected for that. Don't get too far in the weeds here. I could offer my check if it's a coupon for that. It says no signature guarantee. We should definitely know that on a Uniform Practice Code, signatures need to be guaranteed by, a commercial bank has a medallion stamp, and or the New York Stock Exchange has a medallion stamp, a medallion stamp. I would recognize that we don't recognize notaries in the securities industry. So expect like all the following except. Delivery is made prior to the settlement. Yeah, and if delivery is made prior to the settlement, the buying broker dealer could choose to reject. The signature is ineligible. No, that's not a reason. That's a minor irregularity, and that would be not reason to reject. When calculating accrued interest for a corporate bond, all the following are considered except. So it's a corporate bond. Every month has 30 days. Indeed, on the Uniform Practice Code, corporate bonds have 30 days. B, regular way settlement is T+2. Indeed, under the Uniform Practice Code, regular way settlement is T+2. C, for bonds that pay interest on the 15th. So if I own the bond, and I got paid on the 15th, that was for up to, but not including the 15th. So I've been paid for 14 days in that month, therefore 16 days. So any bond that pays on the 15th, the first month is going to have 16 days. That is true. Accrued interest is calculated up to and including the settlement. No, it doesn't include settlement, because settlement is when ownership changes hands, and that's when the buyer is now entitled to that moving forward. A due bill. I would definitely know that a due bill is an IOU to a buyer on trades just prior to the X date. So every once in a while we do a trade just prior to the X date, and for whatever happens, maybe a DK, don't know, the buy side doesn't recognize our sell, and settlement, doesn't happen on T+2. So this is telling the buyer that we know that you're entitled to the dividend, and we'll take action to get it for you. Now, it makes sense that we can't mess this up after the X date, because the whole point here is the only way to screw this up are in trades just prior to the X date. And so the answer there is B. I would definitely know that on the Uniform Practice Code, the X date is 1 business day prior to record. That X date is not set by the board of directors. I would definitely know that a violation of the code of conduct is selling dividends. We're supposed to make sure that our brokers aren't using the dividend. The X date is an artifice, an artificial sense of urgency to buy the stock. That's just nonsensical because the stock is going to go down by the amount of the dividend. So it definitely would know that. If a representative possesses material inside information about a publicly traded company, under which extenuating circumstances may the representative communicate the information to the customer? And that's a layup. Under no circumstances. Under no circumstances. Which of the following is used to disseminate trade information about municipal debt securities? That is EMMA. I love EMMA. Boy, if you're a geek like me and you want to know about munis, all kinds of stuff there. That stands for the Electronic Municipal Market Access. The MSRB was accused of collecting money and never doing anything with it. And, people finally, were giving them so much heat. They said, oh, let's spend some of our money because they don't do anything except publish rules. I'm joking. Don't tell them I said that. But anyway, they spent a fortune developing EMMA. And boy, it's a neat thing. Which of the following is true? Statement regarding a nominal. Customers get hung up on this all the time. We tell them all the statements, quotes on their statements are nominal. If you call me as a market maker and you ask me for a quote, maybe you're like a mutual fund and you're calculating NAV, and I say, let me give you some nominal quotes. These are not quotes at which I'm willing to do business. Nominal quotes are for informational purposes only. So maybe you say, hey, Dean, I'm going to do my financial statement. I told them I have a $3 million muni bond portfolio. I'd like to get some quotes from you just so I can show them the munis I own and what they're worth. I said, let me give you some nominal quotes. And I say 110. You go, 110, let's sell. I go, whoa. I think I started the discussion by saying, let me give you some nominal quotes. Let me tell you what that means. That means the quotes I'm giving you are for informational purposes only. Form D. So you should know that under 33, there are certain safe harbors. Safe harbor is a legal term. Not only in the securities industry, anytime you're talking to an attorney, you say, is there some safe harbor available to me? Is there a way to do what I want to do and not get in trouble? And under 33, they say if you're going to sell brand new securities to the public, you need to make a registration statement, but there are some safe harbors. And one of those is Reg D. Reg D is one of the safe harbors under 33. Reg D is a private placement, an investment by invitation only. So what we're selling is unregistered securities. We can sell it to institutional investors. We can sell it to accredited investors. I would definitely know accreditation standards. A good way to remember accreditation standards are 1, 2, 3. $1 million net worth, exclusive of your primary residence, or $200,000 in annual income for the last 2 years with the expectation of $200,000 this year, or 300 grand filing jointly for the last 2 years with the expectation of 300 grand this year. The point being, if you lose your money, who cares? Work another year. I'm joking. Or if you're not sophisticated, rent somebody who is. Now we have 2 versions of this Reg D private placement. We have a 506B and a 506C. So this is to register, and the whole point here is we're selling unregistered securities using a safe harbor. So A is not correct. Report earnings and operational status, and register penny stock, and there we go. To notify the SEC of an exempt offering, a safe harbor, right? So one exempt offering is a Reg D, there's Reg A, there's Reg S, there's 147. All the following are regarding a power of attorney are true, except a power of attorney must be received promptly after the first trade. And we need the the proper documentation in place before we do the first trade. A durable power of attorney survives incapacitation. That's true. That's what durable means. So if you're declared mentally incompetent or legally incompetent to handle affairs, my power of attorney is still in force. A limited power of attorney allows you to third party to trade. Yep. Limited means, that I can only make investment decisions for you. I can't withdraw monies in securities. And all power of attorneys cease upon the death. So the answer is A. Which of the following statements is true? Rule 144 is applicable to only fixed income securities. Rule 144A pertains to unregistered foreign securities sold to certain investors. That is correct. And by the way, it can also be non-registered domestic securities. And I would know this. The certain investors this can be sold to under 144A are what are called QIBs. A QIB is a qualified institutional buyer of securities. And you should definitely know that a qualified institutional buyer of securities is an institutional investor with assets under management of 100 million or more. As I said, what they can do as a QIB is they can buy unregistered foreign and domestic securities. So that's what that's about. So the answer is B. Reg S, you should know, doesn't govern short sales. Reg S governs another safe harbor for U.S. issuers, to sell their securities offshore to institutional investors, right? So this is a way for a U.S. corporation, a domestic issuer, to sell securities offshore to institutional investors in Europe or Asia or Latin America or Europe. So that's what Reg S is about. Reg D provides exemption from the registration of municipal debt. No. Reg D again is that private placement. Which of the following would be deemed a sales practice violation? Offering breakpoints, quantity discounts. No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. A breakpoint sale, indeed. A breakpoint sale is where I try and maximize my commission by avoiding the breakpoint. Right? That's a big no-no. Backdating a letter of intent. No, we can do that for up to 90 days. The letter of intent is good for 13 months. Not a problem. That's a good thing. All mutual fund transactions are based on the next calculation of the NAV, which is called foreign pricing. And that's not a sales violation. That's just how mutual funds work. 68, anytime you see somebody 65 or older, red flag, you go, okay, this is a senior citizen as a sales supervisor or general securities principal, protected species. Rightfully so. In fact, we have to have in our written supervisory procedures what we're doing to protect seniors from being exploited. Now, I don't know if that's what this question is about yet, but that's something I'd be thinking about. And then, boy, huge red flag, a variable annuity for a 68-year-old investor. I'm not quite sure why a 68-year-old investor would be buying a non-qualified retirement plan. That seems kind of odd. The principal supervisory officer at the branch would be most interested in suitability. Indeed, suitability. Which of the following is true regarding FINRA rule on restrictions on the purchase and sale of initial equity public offerings? So, if we didn't have restricted persons, you would never see the good stuff because we keep it for ourselves. So Representative's aunt is not restricted because the aunt is not an immediate family member. The aunt is not an immediate family member. Now be careful. The aunt lives under my roof and I pay her bills. She slides back into the category of being restricted. Adult child, it doesn't matter, child living at home or not, it's immediate family member. Owners of 10% or more, yep. Issuer directed sales may not be made. No, they can be made to the employee of the issuer. So the answer is A. So there's two versions of a private placement. There's 506B, and with 506B, I'm allowed to have up to 35 non-accredited investors. I always can have an unlimited number of institutional investors and accredited investors. With 506C, I can have only accredited investors, natural persons, living, breathing, human being walking planet Earth, an unlimited number of institutional investors, unnatural persons. So this is a 506B, may be sold to an unlimited number of non-accredited investors. That's false because I just told you we can only have up to 35. Can use an online questionnaire to qualify prospects. That sounds reasonable so far. But one of our mantras as test takers is RTFQ, read the full question, and RTFA, read the full answer set. So I'm going to read the other answers just to see if I don't find something that speaks to me. It allows general solicitation. No, it does, but no advertising. That's not as important as B. It looks like I've got a quandary here and now about B or C. Allows general solicitations, but no advertising. Now, general solicitation, it's supposed to be a private placement, and that would be the distinction between the 506B and the 506C. We can use general solicitation in the 506C. So I'm sticking with my B choice here. I'm sticking with my B choice. Under section 4.6, may not sell to non-accredited investors. No, we just said you can up to 35 sophisticated but non-accredited investors. So B is in boy. Rule 144 deals with which of these? Well, in the old days, we would have legends on physical stock certificates in red letters that says stop transfer. We don't do that anymore, but we still refer to that stock as legend stock or red letter stock. And 144 certainly does deal with that because, it's all about how do we remove the red letters or legend that says stop transfer, mainly through holding it. So if you came into my branch in the old days with a stock certificate that had red letters that said stop transfer, I'd say, how long have you held this? And if you held it long enough, we'd send it into the transfer agent and get those nasty red letters removed. Control stock. Yeah, control stock is the stock that is held by control persons, the officers, directors, and principal stockholders. And indeed, regardless of how those folks got the stock, they are subject to the volume limitations of 144. Those people have to file the form at or prior to their sale. And, in the 90-day period that follows, they can sell up to 1% of the outstanding stock or the average of the last 4 weeks trading volume, whichever is greater. So 2 is true. 3, it deals with restricted securities. Yeah, restricted in terms of transfer. That's what it's about, right? Unregistered securities are restricted in your ability to transfer them unless you meet the requirements of 144. 4, securities received from other than a public offering. Indeed, right? I mean, this is stock you got directly from the issuer. You didn't get this in a public marketplace. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Simplified arbitration may be filed for disputes of $50,000, $50,000, and that's one arbitrator start to finish 30 days. That's why it's simplified. I can't think of anything that 75 grand is the right answer to. 100,000 could have been the right answer to the minimum net capital of a market maker. 250 could have been the answer to the market maker, a net capital for a clearing firm. So, that makes the test challenging. The distractor is the wrong answers. It could be right answers to different questions. Our arbitration is 6. The vast majority, you have buckets of how long we keep things. And the biggest bucket of record retention is 3 years. There's very few records that are 6. And even a smaller bucket of things that are lifetime. And then there's some oddballs, like, for example, customer complaints are 4 years. And, money laundering is 5 years. There's some oddballs out there. But anyways, in terms of lifetime, this is 6. There's nothing that's 7. There's nothing that's, 10. There's, 10 year on the U4, but 36 months, new account form, we send it back out to you, the account documentation is filed to see if there's any material change, but this is 6. And then lifetime, a good way to remember lifetime is with the mnemonic memory aid spam. So, Schwab has been around since 1975. So since 1975, we want to know who the owners of Schwab are. The stock certificates, if it's a C Corp like Schwab. Edward E. Jones recently celebrated, I think, their 100th anniversary. They're a partnership. So, if it's a partnership, who are the owners? That's what we mean by stock certificates and partnership agreement. Articles of incorporation, maybe there was a fork in the road, you took the road less traveled. Maybe we'll make up a new rule based on that. Articles of incorporation. Minutes of the meetings, that's the one, right? Where we see where there was a fork in the road. And, maybe we make a rule and name it after you, not bueno to get a rule named after you, like the Drexel rule. So the lifetime records, that bucket's very small. Stock, what we mean by stock certificates is ownership of the broker dealer. If it's a partnership, ownership of the partnership that is the broker dealer. Articles of incorporations and minutes of the meetings. I think of 6-year records is items of original entry, and then the vast majority of records are 3. Now, it makes sense if arbitration statute of limitations is 6, that customer account statements would be 6 as well, right? Because God knows we don't want to walk into an arbitration case and the customer has records that we do not have. All right, so I hope you found that helpful. Put in the comment box what you're interested in terms of lecture. I'll be continuing to put practice questions in there, and I'll continue on with the explications as well. And then hopefully someday we'll have as much in the 9, 10, 24 playlists for principles as we presently have for the SIE. I'm very proud of the SIE playlist. It's 41 videos. I have some people now using that as their primary study source, and their paid supplement as their paid study materials as their supplement. And the 7 is almost complete. I mean, it's got 5 different playlists. 66, I still got some more work to do there on the 66, and some work on the 65. And God knows we don't have as much as we need for our Series 6s. And then you guys, 9, 10s, 24s, we certainly need to put some more stuff, content up for you guys. So guys and gals, and I'm working on it. It's a one-man show and it's free. So sometimes my paid commitments, and if you're with this free commitment to add a free supplement to your paid study materials. All right, so thank you, and I'll see you on the next time we make an installment in the playlist.